was seeing right there in my home was the quiet transformation of who is coming to this country. Migrants, when I started writing about migrants, were overwhelmingly men. But already back then, 20 years ago, what I was seeing was that there were more than half of the people here unlawfully, of the 11 million people here unlawfully, were actually women and children, and this is accelerating. There were millions of single moms who came to this country, I saw as I started to look at this. And in Los Angeles, 4 out of 5 live-in nannies. They still have a child left behind in their home countries. These women, like this woman migrating, are part of the largest wave of immigration in our nation's history. I was just in Waco, Texas, and in Waco, Texas, they have their hair on fire about this issue, and in Alabama, where I was recently, not so much here in California, but in parts of California as well. From 1990 to 2010, 27 million people came here legally and not. That's numerically more than at any time in our nation's history. And so one of the reasons people have their hair on fire were those numbers that we saw in those 20-year period. 1 in 4 kids in our public schools is an immigrant or child of an immigrant, and that'll be 30% in just a few years. All of these women that I talked to, like my house cleaner, as I interviewed these women across this country, told me, I am here, and yet I am taking care of someone else's child. I play with that boy, and I feed him, and I love him. But I wasn't there to see my own son take those first few steps, or to be able to hear my daughter's words, or to be there on Christmas morning with my children. They all told me the same story. They said that the only way I could leave my kids that day, I swore to them a promise. I said, "Mijo, this is going to be 1 or 2 years. It won't be any more than that." What they didn't realize is life in the United States is a lot tougher than advertised. And I think this is because out of pride, when people phone home to their relatives or friends, they puff up, they talk about all the good stuff. You know, I have a job that pays 10 bucks an hour, and I have a car. What they don't say is I'm working 2 or 3 jobs, I'm sleeping 5 hours a night, I'm stuffed in a garage here in Santa Clara County, or with 3 other families in an apartment. I'm struggling to pay my bills here, to send $100 home to my children every month back to Central America, and I'm struggling to save $10,000 that I have to put in the smuggler's hand to bring each of my children north today from Central America. So I found that this was never a 5 to 10 year separation. These separations stretch to 5 or 10 years or even more. And these kids, of course, they get desperate to be with their mama again. And so they get this idea, I am going, if she's not returning for me or sending for me, I am going to go and find her. When I started looking at this, good Lord, 19 years ago, I never thought that I'd still be talking about this, but this year we will have more children making this journey. In the year that just concluded, we had more children making this journey than at any time in those 19 years. What I discovered was that there was this small army of children heading north, alone, with no parent by their side, from Mexico and from Central America. Back when I started looking at this in the year 2000, I calculated that 48,000 children came to the United States in that way, by themselves. And back then, these kids were coming to work, they were fleeing abusive situations with their families in their home countries, but most of them were coming to find a mom who had left them behind. And so I wrote about that army of children migrating through the true story of one boy, Enrique. This is him. This is him when he's just 5 years old. And his mama walks away from him in Honduras and comes to work in California. And she leaves him with his paternal grandma in Honduras. And he would beg his grandma, "Is she ever coming back for me?"